$25,000 for an opera in Colombia to increase transgender representation. $32,000 for a transgender comic book program in Peru.
I'm Stephanie Keith.
And I am Tara Manjekovic, and we are unapologetically outspoken. Hey everybody, happy Wednesday. Okay. Wow, we have a lot to talk about today, and it's mostly going to be all about Doge because everything that's going on with this agency has been absolutely eye-opening and phenomenal. So, we need to give some updates about what we talked about on Monday with USAID. So after our episode finished on Monday, Secretary of State Rubio announced that he is now going to be the acting director of USAID, and his plan is to integrate it into the State Department. And we spoke on Monday about how the role of this agency is really civilian foreign aid for disaster and poverty relief. Like, that's what it's traditionally been. And apparently, we are the world's largest provider of food assistance to underdeveloped parts of the world. No surprise there. I kind of figured that already. But I wanted to know more about this agency because it really is the subject of a lot of controversy right now. But their website was shut down by Elon Musk on Monday morning. But I did find an article in Yahoo News yesterday that had the archived website. And I just want to read what the agency's mission was before this was all taken down. So it said that their mission was to promote democratic values abroad and advance a free, peaceful, and prosperous world. In support of America's foreign policy, the USAID leads the United States government's international development and disaster assistance through partnerships and investments that save lives, reduce poverty, strengthen democratic governance, and help people emerge from humanitarian crisis and progress beyond assistance. Okay, so as I mentioned on Monday, they have, I guess I should say had, because I don't think all these employees are there anymore, but they had a staff of 10,000 people across the world.
Okay, so I don't want to sound like an asshole, but it really pisses me off that we're helping other countries with things like humanitarian, need and natural disasters, while the people of North Carolina were given nothing until Trump got in office. And I get helping other people, but if you can't even help your own people first, then what the hell are we doing? And I just want to point something else out because I'm not buying their whole mission, okay? Because ever since people started going on that Red Note app when TikTok was banned, I feel like it opened my eyes, but same with a lot of people on TikTok, to the fact that all these places around the world that we are told are third world countries and America needs to save them, they're actually doing pretty damn well. And in many cases, they make the US look like a third world country. So there's this whole trend now on TikTok where people are showing videos and photos of like what we're taught versus reality. So the latest example I've seen was with Ethiopia, where you hear Ethiopia and what do you think of? You think of starving children living in huts. That's what we've been told. But when you see videos of what it actually is like, it just makes you question everything because there's these beautiful buildings, a vibrant, clean city that seems more advanced than most American cities. Their malls, Tara. Have you seen any of these videos?
No.
Oh my gosh. Their malls look like what we would consider a five-star luxury resort. Just so
In
advanced, so
Ethiopia?
beautiful. In Ethiopia, all over Africa, not just Ethiopia. There's like all these different African countries where same thing. They make you think they're starving children, but like gorgeous, great infrastructure, beautiful architecture. And and then you come here and it's like our malls are all still stuck in the 80s. And, I don't want to get off tangent, but my point is, I don't think that any of this is truly about helping starving children around the world. I think it's a big money laundering operation, just like every other agency in our government.
Oh, 100%. And we're going to get into the details of that because yesterday it was revealed, and this was just days before Elon started this whole process with like going in and trying to dismantle USAID. There was an internal memo that was sent to employees on January 23rd, and it was from the Office of the Inspector General for USAID. And it was called Memorandum Challenges to Accountability and Transparency within USAID funded programs. And in the summary, it read, quote, this memorandum identifies vulnerabilities and challenges which we believe hinder accountability and transparency within agency programs, end quote. And this includes resistance from UN agencies and foreign-based NGOs to share information with the Office of the Inspector General about potential misconduct, limitations on vetting of aid organizations for ties to designated terrorist organizations and known corrupt actors, and limitations in obtaining data about USAID-funded subawardees. So what does this mean? Well, there was a great article that broke it down in Just the News yesterday. So this report from the Inspector General indicates that around $8 billion goes through these United Nations, NGOs, and development banks. And because like their status is emergency environment status, the OIG basically relies on these organizations to self-report if there's any potential fraud, or misconduct. And reportedly like they're contractually obligated to do this, but we know these organizations are corrupt as fuck, right? So of course they're not going to self-report misconduct and fraud. And the OIG is obviously aware of this because he talks about it in this memorandum. And the article gives the example of the World Food Program, which they reported 519 incidents of misconduct to USAID. But the Inspector General was only notified of 29 of these 519 instances. And there's no way to prevent these NGOs from, taking these employees who commit misconduct. They just shuffle them into another USAID funded agency. So they just keep repeating the same shit and they never get caught for any of it. And then another example that was given was there was a review by USAID that found that employees for an organization in Syria knowingly diverted USAID funded food kits to an Al Qaeda terrorist organization. In 2023, aid workers uncovered a scheme to divert USAID food kits in Ethiopia, where thousands of tons of grain shipments that were meant to feed the reportedly hungry Ethiopians in the middle of civil conflict were instead sent to warring armies and sold on the black market. And when this was reported, the World Food Program said, oh, yeah, we're aware that this has been going on for years with the aid getting stolen. And then there's the issue of the agency not being able to properly monitor expenditures related to terrorist groups. And that has to do with the fact that these sub-awardees, which are basically subcontractors, they're not required to complete any kind of anti-terrorism certification. And there's no kind of comprehensive internal database that keeps track of any of these subcontractors, which means we don't have any way to identify them. We can't vet them, and we can't even fucking track them. Like, this organization is a fucking shit show.
In this day and age, why don't we have a website where every single taxpayer can go on and see every single dollar that's spent? Like when I do my taxes, I have to show if I'm gonna, put expenses, I have to have receipts and show what they were for. So it's ridiculous. It's money laundering. And I
Mm-hmm.
came across this clip of Ron Paul. So he's
I
talking
love
about,
him.
yeah, he's talking about this, US aid. And let's just hear what he says because he feels that these NGOs are simply operating as shadow governments. Hold on, let me get the clip. I swear I have it prepared. It just won't play.
USAID spends billions of dollars every year propping up NGOs overseas that function as shadow governments, eating away at elected governments that the U.S. interventionists want to overthrow. Behind most U.S. foreign policy disasters overseas, you will see the fingerprints of USAID. From Ukraine to Georgia and far beyond, USAID is meddling in the internal affairs of foreign countries, something that would infuriate Americans if it was happening to us. When President Trump ordered a 90-day pause in USAID activities, we quickly learned just how pernicious the agency really is. The U.S. media reported that Ukrainian press outlets were scrambling to keep their doors open when the U.S. dollar stopped flowing. It is reported that 90% of the media outlets are funded by the U.S. government. This means that there is virtually no independent media in Ukraine, only fake news outlets willing to toe the U.S. administration's propaganda line. Does anyone think these wholly U.S.-funded news outlets would ever publish a story that the U.S. government did not want published? This is plainly immoral, but it is also dangerous. Most U.S. mainstream media stories about Ukraine have their origin in the reporting of the local media. From battlefield news to casualties to the state of the Ukrainian military, the news from Ukraine is being written by U.S. government-backed media outlets and then picked up by U.S. and other Western media. It is a closed propaganda loop that not only propagandizes the U.S. citizens but also feeds false information into U.S. government outlets, such as Congress, that rely on mainstream U.S. media reporting for their news on Ukraine. USAID.
So it makes you wonder, like, is anything we hear actually true? Because a lot of this money is just going to curate the story that's going to come out about whatever's happening around the world, especially Ukraine.
Yeah, it's 100% propaganda.
Yeah.
And speaking of, I don't know if you saw this. Um, I I guess Zelensky was interviewed. I can't remember what it was on, but he was asked about like Tucker Carlson. And he basically called him a puppet of Putin, which we've heard him say before. But he said something like, he needs to stop licking Putin's ass and just like went off on this
Oh my
tangent
God.
because I think Tucker had said something about him basically being a dictator, which he is. And so I just thought that was really funny. But
Have you
anyway,
seen Tucker's interview with Pierce Morgan?
no.
Oh my gosh, you have to watch it. It
I
is
think I think that's
hilarious.
I think Zelensky went on Pierce Morgan. I think that's maybe it was after Tucker. Okay, I'll have to
It's
listen to
so
that.
funny. I love Tucker. I like Pierce Morgan too, but Tucker just like destroys him and it's hilarious. You have to watch it.
Okay, I will add that to my list. Um, but back to this takeover of USAID. So when Rubio announced it on Monday, he was saying like this agency, he called it an unresponsive agency of rank insubordination and said that it needs to align with US foreign policy. And he said, quote, they don't consider that they work for the United States. They just think they're a global entity and their master is the globe and the United, not the United States, and that's not sustainable. And so Congress is obviously flipping out. They're saying, oh, you can't dismantle this because it was created by federal law and it's funded by Congress, which is true. So I'm really not sure how that works with executive orders, dismantling something that was created by Congress. But the agency was established by executive order back in 1961 with JFK. And the whole purpose of it was to help fight the spread of communism and promote democracy abroad during the Cold War. It wasn't created to fill the pockets of corrupt NGOs and politicians. And I think the only reason Congress is opposed to this is they're losing their shit because how many of these congressmen are heavily invested in these NGOs and corrupt organizations that are receiving these billions of dollars in these shady ass grants?
And here's my question. Let's say you get a job and there's a panel, like a leadership team, and they all have to vote to hire you. But then you go and you start stealing money from the company. Your manager, your direct manager is going to fire you. They don't need to go and get
Right.
approval from the board. Why would this be any different? They're literally stealing money.
Yeah, exactly. So I want to play a clip from Rubio and what he had to say yesterday.
About the aid. You talk about the United States being a strong partner. China, of course, is doing aid projects around the world. When you have these drastic changes, what does it do to American soft power? Is there a question about the U.S. using leverage, perhaps because some of these programs are there?
Right. On the first question about aid, no one's talking. This is a 90-day freeze through which it allows us now to review programs. You know, before we did the freeze, we couldn't find out anything about some of these programs. And USAID in particular, they refuse to tell us anything. We won't tell you what the money's going to, where the money's for, who has it, which contractor it's been. You know, in some cases, it goes through 4 different contractors before it reaches the intended recipient. These are not my numbers. These are USAID's number. In some cases with USAID, 10, 12, 13%, maybe less of the money was actually reaching the recipient, and the rest was going into the overhead and the bureaucracy. This isn't my money. This is taxpayer money. So we're not going to eliminate foreign aid. We're going to have foreign aid that makes sense. We're going to have foreign aid that works. We're going to have foreign aid that furthers the national interest. We're going to have foreign aid that benefits our trusted partners and our allies. I am here today. We've issued a waiver today because in Costa Rica, we have a trusted partner and an ally who has proven that they have taken aid from the United States and used it to fix a problem, to help us, to do it in a way that actually helps the United States. They're stopping drugs. They're stopping criminals. They're identifying terrorists. This is foreign aid that furthers the national interest. Other programs we have questions about. But we've also issued waivers because we don't want anybody see anybody die or anybody be harmed in the short term. But we're going to conduct a review, and we are going to have foreign aid in this country that is going to further the national interest of the United States. If it doesn't make us stronger or more prosperous or more secure, we aren't going to spend taxpayer money on it.
Exactly. That's the whole point.
Marco Rubio is really winning me over. I
I
gotta say,
know.
I didn't always like him, but I'm starting to like him. And of course, it all boils down to money, right? All you need to do is follow the money and you see all the corruption. And so now you have Senator Chris Van Hollen, who led a group of protesters to the USAID building to stop Elon Musk. And listen to what he tells the crowd. I'm going to play a clip of it.
We are here to enter the building, and so we can hear firsthand from whoever is here at AID, or at least witness firsthand what is happening with this Elon Musk attempted takeover, which will not stand. We will prevail. Let's go.
Okay.
I want to know how much money he has invested in these
Yes.
fucking agencies.
You're reading my mind. I feel like all of the politicians that are speaking up or against this are showing their hand. Like they're tied
Yeah.
up in it and they don't want anyone to find out. And I'm sorry, but like he tells the crowd, we are going to enter the building. Like this is the same group of people that wanted everyone associated with January 6th arrested for simply entering the Capitol building. But now they're going to go take over the USAID building. But, you know, of course, law and order only applies to the right. But like, it just blows my mind. Imagine protesting against the people who are trying to stop fraud, waste, and abuse in our government with our tax dollars, his constituents' tax dollars. And you're going to fight against that? Like, I thought this is the party that's supposed to be against the rich elites, you know, eat the rich, they always say. Well, here we're trying to do that and you're trying to stop it. And Elon Musk, like, I've been watching him on X now because he's just so entertaining. Like, I've never been on X before, but oh my gosh, he makes it worth it. So he says, quote, remember the same people terrified of Doge wanted to hire 80,000 additional IRS agents to audit you, which is true. But here's the thing. These lunatics, they didn't just protest. They began doxing Elon Musk's government efficiency team by posting their addresses online and encouraging people and threatening to murder them. And so then Elon responds on X saying, quote, threatening or encouraging murder is a crime. Those who do so will go to prison. Tara, like, I am just It makes me so mad because during the Biden administration, do you ever recall Republicans or MAGA supporters threatening to murder Biden supporters? Because
No.
I sure don't remember that. Like, I don't remember any of that because it didn't happen. And yet, MAGA was considered to be the biggest domestic threat to our national security. But now, yesterday, Elon Musk and his Doge team, people were saying they saw them going into FBI headquarters. And I think that there is going to be some criminal charges, or at least I'm hoping, because it was like right after all this was going down, they're entering FBI. So I really hope we're going to see some arrests.
Oh, I hope so too, because as always, this is the epitome of hypocrisy from the left. But the difference is now we have an administration in place that's not going to put up with the bullshit. And I hope we start to see a lot of fucking arrests because that's the only way they're going to stop doing this nonsense. And I just want to say something about the whole foreign aid concept because I'm honestly not opposed to providing financial relief and disaster aid to other countries, but only when Americans are taken care of first. And that's not the case. Americans have not been taken care of. And so I want to take a look at where this money that USAID has been doling out across the world is actually being spent because it sure as fuck is not on poverty and natural disasters. So in fiscal year 2023, the Biden admin dispersed $72 billion dollars in assistance worldwide. In 2024, it was $44 billion. And the fiscal budget for 2025 before Trump came into office was 30 billion. Now, the data that has been released that is showing what the Biden admin spent this agency's money on for the past few years is fucking astounding. 30 million since 2018 was sent to fund the WITS Health Consortium, which is a South African research facility that studies transmission of HIV among sex workers and transgender people. 30 million in Africa, South Africa. 38 million in grants that went to the same Wuhan lab that COVID came from. 1.5 million to an LGBTQ organization in Serbia called Group Ijadi. And this was to advance diversity, equity, and inclusion in Serbia's workplaces and business communities by promoting empowerment of and opportunity for LGBTQI plus people in Serbia. 2.5 million for electric vehicles in Vietnam, which, by the way, this was on the USAID website before it went down. There has been one fucking battery station built there, okay? 2.5 million for electric vehicles, one station, and they were boasting on the website that this has saved a total of 260 gallons of gas. But I was reading this article in the Daily Mail and they're like, yeah, the average semi truck holds like 130 gallons of gas. So what? You basically saved two truckloads with $2.5 million? Insane. Also in Vietnam, USAID helped to open the Trans Care Clinic to, quote, address ongoing gaps in transgender healthcare across Vietnam. There was funding for a documentary highlighting this agency's efforts in creating the first transgender healthcare clinic in India, and a 2023 global initiative to help advance LGBTQI plus objectives around the world.
I feel like we are just one big joke in the world. Everyone's got to be laughing at us for sure.
Yeah, and that's just USAID, and I know it's USAID, but I'm calling it USAID. And I want to point out a few other examples of just State Department spending that have been exposed by Doge with the DEI agenda. $25,000 for an opera in Colombia to increase transgender representation. $32,000 for a transgender comic book program in Peru, and $500,000 to expand atheism in Nepal.
Oh my
American
God.
tax dollars. Yeah.
Wow. Well, to Marco Rubio's point, I think he was talking about this on one of the clips I saw, but this kind of thing is doing the opposite of what it's supposed to do. It's actually hurting our foreign relations because the woke shit they're promoting isn't seen favorably by most of those nations that you just listed. And so it makes us look like a bunch of woke idiots. And okay, so we had a clip from our last episode go viral on TikTok because people are pissed about all this spending. And I am not kidding you. Every comment that's coming in is saying, how is this not treason? There needs to be criminal charges brought to everyone involved because it's literally stealing our money, our taxpayer dollars.
Yeah.
And, it's money laundering. And so Elon Musk, once again, because he posts like 80 million times a day, he posts something and it was so perfect. He says, how many governments tax their citizens and send money to the United States? What a
Yeah.
good question, because the answer is none. Yet we're sending money to damn near every country. And I mean, hell, we're even sending money to terrorist groups. And it needs to end now. And I think it hopefully finally will.
Yeah, my husband sent me something this morning, I think it was. And I don't know where these numbers came from. But it's this Facebook page called California Sucks. And it highlights how much money, how much US taxpayer dollars has been given to foreign countries in the last 4 years. And I just want to read some of these numbers. And again, I don't know where these numbers came from, but if it's accurate, this is fucking insane. 295 million to Mexico, 324 million to the Czech Republic, which I'm like, what is the Czech Republic getting
It's
this
for the
money for?
propaganda. That's why everyone there hates Trump.
Yeah. 334 million to Estonia, 339 million to Lithuania, 375 million to Poland, 397 million to Romania, 431 million to Bulgaria, 471 million to Tanzania, 536 million to Pakistan, 731 million to Colombia, 809 million to the Philippines, 998 million to Somalia, 1 billion to Lebanon, 2.2 billion to Iraq, 2.3 billion to Jordan, 6.1 billion to Afghanistan, 6.3 billion to Egypt, 2.6 billion to Ukraine, and 8.5 billion to Israel. That's insane.
It's so the corruption is so staggering. I can't
Yeah.
believe that, it takes Trump in 2025 to stop it. I mean, this has been going on for decades, but especially over the past 4 years, I feel like they just went so far. It's undeniable. And again, like there needs to be arrests. This is criminal.
Yeah. Yeah, I know. And so let's talk a little bit about the Department of Education because it seems like that might be the next target. So there was a report that came out from Parents Defending Education, and it's alleging that since 2021, the Department of Education has awarded over 200 million to 48 universities to add DEI content into their counseling courses to include anti-racism, microaggressions, white privilege, and whiteness. Now, we've talked about a lot of this on previous podcasts, but I just want to point out a couple of recently highlighted examples. 4.7 million to Johns Hopkins University in Maryland to recruit more LGBTQIA students, 2.66 million to Marquette University in Wisconsin to provide scholarships to help Black, Indigenous, and other people of color become school counselors.
I gotta tell you, I am probably more excited about what Trump's going to do with the Department of Education than anything else because I have three school-age kids. And it's crap like this. Like they constantly say, "Oh, the reason why none of these high schoolers can read and do math is because of COVID." Well, that might be a part of the reason, but that's also the time when they implemented this kind of crap. Instead of teaching math, they're going to focus on DEI bullshit and indoctrination. And I saw this clip from Senator Ted Cruz. He went on ABC News and he said that President Trump might be signing an executive order soon, like I think this week or maybe next, to what he said dismantle the Department of Education. And I'm here for it. I really hope this happens because over 40 years and billions of dollars spent, and not one metric has improved as a result. Things have gotten worse, if anything. So it's like, you know what? It's time to try something new. I know we talked about this before. Trump's in favor of school choice. He wants to get the funding and the decision making back to the state level and in the hands of parents. And we started doing that here in Florida. I think it's a great model to see how it works, where they actually are giving parents the option. Like if I pull my kids out of public school, I get that money. I get $8,000 a year per child to create a homeschool curriculum or send them to private school or whatever. And instead of giving that money to the Department of Education where they do nothing positive, yeah, let's put it
Mhm.
back in the hands of the parents and the states. So like oh man, when this all comes out and he reveals exactly what he's going to do, we need to have just a whole episode on it because I've got a lot to say.
Yeah, and to your point of what you just brought up about how kids can't even read, there was a report that was released last week from the National Assessment of Educational Progress. And I guess they release these reports every 2 years. It's called the Nation's Report Card. And the 2024 report card just came out. And it showed that compared to 2022, reading scores for eighth grade level dropped by 2 points, which became the nation's lowest ever scores for basic reading proficiency. And the report showed that less than one-third of American students enter high school with the necessary reading and comprehension skills. Less than a third. Like, that's
Mhm.
crazy,
Yep.
Stephanie. And this is despite, like you just mentioned, how this coincided with COVID, right? Well, there was $190 billion in federal pandemic funds that were given to the DOE specifically to help students that were falling behind. And yet the records from the last 2 years show that we've fallen even more and like nothing has improved. I guarantee that money did not go to the schools to help children learn how to read. And our education system is fucking abysmal. And frankly, I'm glad that I do not have children that I have to worry about sending to school. But I do think there might be an issue with Trump trying to dismantle the DOE because I think it would require approval from Congress, but he can certainly overhaul it and like make massive changes without getting rid of it.
Yeah, and I'm wondering too, can he reroute the funds to the states, still within the Department of Education, but like, you know what I mean, giving the money to the states rather than the federal government? I'm sure we're going to hear a whole plan on that. I know when he was campaigning, he said he was going to implement school choice, which their states already doing that. Florida's doing it, and then give $10,000 per student that wants to be homeschooled to go towards their education costs or whatever. So we'll see what happens with that. But everyone should go look. There's a graph. I think Elon Musk actually reposted it as well. But there's a graph that shows the funding for the Department of Education since its start. And of course, it's like a steep line up. I mean, the funding has just increased tremendously, but then it has all the metrics, reading, writing, math, all that stuff has stayed stable, constant. It has not gone up at even 1%. In some cases, like you just said, it goes down. That's insane. With today's technology and like how far we should be, there's no reason these numbers shouldn't be increasing. So it's just the whole thing, once again, another example of money laundering.
Yeah, exactly. And okay, I have to bring this up because I want to know your thoughts on this. So, one of the things I keep seeing people freaking out about is the software engineers that Elon has hired for Doge. They're all young people. Like they range from 19 to 24 years old. And everything I'm reading in the MSM is about how, oh, he's giving control of the Treasury Department to a bunch of young kids. And, so of course it's like a total freak out. But I want to know your thoughts.
Okay, it's actually funny that you bring this up because I just came across, I think last week, an article about this. So this is actually, it's a smart move, and he's not the only one. This is what a lot of tech companies are looking for now is, young people that are not coming directly from college. So there was a tech CEO that wrote an article, and I couldn't find the exact article, so I'll try to look for that and post it on TikTok. But this CEO announced that we're no longer looking at people with 4-year degrees. We want 18 to 20-year-olds that have an interest in coding, technology. We will hire them and we will train them and mold them because he said these college grads are coming in and they basically have to unlearn everything they learned in college because it's totally outdated. They have no idea what's going on in the real world right now. And so they just don't even want to deal with it. They'd rather have someone fresh come in and learn from scratch with them. And then also, like 18 to 24-year-olds, you got to think they can probably work a lot more hours than older people with families. And I know, like, I've heard Elon's putting these people to work around the clock because there's
Well,
so much to do.
look how much happened over the weekend, like when government bureaucracy typically isn't working, right?
Yeah. Yes, exactly. And then, the other thing I was thinking too is if you're someone like Elon Musk, you have to really be able to trust the people around you. And I just feel like a kid who's brand new to the industry is probably a safer choice than someone who's worked with other companies like OpenAI, for example, or Microsoft, because the longer people are intertwined in these industries, they build loyalties and relationships with competitors. And it's
Yeah.
just like with politicians, the longer someone's a politician, the more likely they are to be corrupt. And I kind of think this same rule applies to big tech. So I get why he's doing it.
Yeah, you make some really good points. And this cleanup of federal government in general is weeding out the useless employees, right? And like, remember how one of the first things that Trump did when he took office was he announced that he was ordering all the government employees working from home to come back into the office. And this was so, with the exception of military personnel, postal employees, and positions related to immigration enforcement and national security, he made it so that every other federal employee is eligible for a buyout program where, and I think this is crazy personally, but basically, if you want to leave the government, you'll get paid 8 months worth of salary and benefits, and you won't have to come into work at all during those 8 months. And you can just get paid to leave the job in 8 months' time, which again, I think it's fucking ridiculous. And so 20,000 people have already taken Trump up on this deal. And the deadline to agree to this buyout is Thursday, tomorrow. So I guess we'll see what the totals end up being at the end of the week. And yesterday, Trump announced that he's going to offer these buyouts to the CIA as well. So I think we're going to see a lot of people leaving.
Yeah, I saw this type of thing a lot when I was in the corporate world. And believe it or not, as outrageous as it seems, it actually saves money in the long run because typically, and I don't know if this is the case, but I'm assuming when you accept the buyout, you're signing away your right to sue the company, or in this case, like sue the government. And I'm sure that Democrats are going to be trying to get all of these employees to sue the Trump administration. Like I could see Letitia James right now. She's probably getting the paperwork ready as we speak. So I think they're trying to do this to just say, like, you are leaving, you're resigning, we're not firing you, therefore you can't come back and sue us. And it's just like a cleaner break than jumping through all these hoops to fire each, person.
And I can see how it's very enticing. Like 8 months of salary and benefits while you go out and look for another job or do whatever the fuck it is you want to do. Like,
I would take it.
it's
And a lot of these people
right.
don't even live in DC anymore. They've moved
Yeah.
and, because they were working remotely. So yeah, take the money and go get another job.
Yeah, exactly. And okay, I have to bring this one up because this is one of our favorite agencies when it comes to conspiracy theories. And I was reading yesterday that it seems Doge is interested in the NOAA. And this is freaking out everyone that works there because they think they're going to be downsized, which I think Trump is going to downsize every area of government. But yesterday, Trump nominated Neil Jacobs to head the NOAA. And I guess he was the guy who was heading it in Trump's first term in office. But there was an incident called Sharpie Gate in 2019. Do you remember this at all?
No.
Okay, I didn't know anything about it. So everyone's like up in arms because this guy, Jacobs, is nominated for the position again. So he was apparently cited for misconduct in 2019 because Trump did an Oval Office press briefing about Hurricane Dorian, and he was using a map, and the path of the hurricane had been altered with a black pen, hence the whole Sharpie Gate name. And so Trump in this press conference said that the hurricane was going to hit Alabama based on the route that had been altered with the pen. And I guess Jacobs is he was investigated by the NOAA Science Council because they said he violated the integrity of science because he had issued a statement supporting Trump's incorrect claim about the path of the hurricane.
Okay. I mean, how many times were they like supporting Biden when he said absolute nonsense and was senile? Like, I think we can forgive a Sharpie incident.
I just think it's so stupid that everyone's calling it Sharpie Gate.
I know.
Um, But the last thing I want to mention about Doge for the day, and I'm sure there'll be way more on Friday, but this whole idea is like taking off not just with the federal government, but in states, because the Texas House of Representatives recently announced that they are creating their own Doge committee to clean up state government. GOP leaders in Kansas, Missouri, New Hampshire, North Carolina, Oklahoma, and Wisconsin have done the same. And I think this is fantastic. I don't think it's just federal government bureaucracy that needs to be reduced. I think it needs to be done everywhere. And I think every state should follow Doja's lead and do the same thing.
I agree. We should know where our hard-earned money is being spent. We're taxed like 80 million times on everything that we buy, not to
Mhm.
mention our paycheck, our property taxes, sales tax. Like, we should know where all this money is going. And
Yeah.
yeah, they can bitch and moan all they want, but it's just showing who the corrupt politicians are that want to keep, feeding their NGO friends. So, anyhow, I had to follow up because Monday we talked about the tariffs on Mexico and Canada and like how Trudeau was trying to act all tough, which is just hilarious. Less than 24 hours later, both Canada and Mexico caved into Trump. So, here's what Trudeau posted on X. I just had a good call with President Trump. Canada is implementing our $1.3 billion border plan, reinforcing the border with new choppers, technology, and personnel, enhanced coordination with our American partners, and increased resources to stop the flow of fentanyl. Nearly 10,000 frontline personnel are and will be working on protecting the border. In addition, Canada is making new commitments to appoint a fentanyl czar. We will list cartels as terrorists, ensure 24/7 eyes on our border, launch a Canada-US Joint Strike Force to combat organized crime, fentanyl, and money laundering. I have also signed a new intelligence directive on organized crime and fentanyl, and we will be backing it with $200 million. Proposed tariffs will be paused for at least 30 days while we work together.
Yep.
Wow, what a change from what he was saying the other day, right? And so
Yeah.
then Trump posts about Mexico. He says, I just spoke with President Claudia Sheinbaum of Mexico. It was a very friendly conversation wherein she agreed to immediately supply 10,000 Mexican soldiers on the border, separating Mexico and the United States. These soldiers will be specifically designated to stop the flow of fentanyl and illegal migrants into our country. We further agreed to immediately pause the anticipated tariffs for a 1 month period, during which we will have negotiations headed by Secretary of State Marco Rubio, Secretary of Treasury Scott Bessent, and Secretary of Commerce Howard Lutnick, and high-level representatives of Mexico. I look forward to participating in those negotiations with President Sheinbaum as we attempt to achieve a deal between our two countries. Like, this is
Amazing.
genius because now,
Yeah.
if they don't follow through with everything they just listed, he can slap the tariffs on. They've got 30 days to put this in place or they're getting tariffs.
Yeah.
How freaking amazing. I don't think he ever wanted to put tariffs on them. I think this was all to get them to agree to pay and protect the border.
Yeah, exactly. Because that's what he asked them to do in the first place. And the whole thing was like, do this or I'm gonna fucking slap tariffs on you. And then when he does, and they try to like, brace against it and oppose it, it's like the tariffs that we impose on you are going to hurt you way more than any tariffs you impose on us. So fucking bring it on. And it's like they realize that they can't win.
Yeah. It's that whole fuck around and find out.
Yeah.
And that's what happened with Trudeau. But no, like Trump truly is the world's best negotiator. But nothing compares to the shocking news he gave yesterday. I've got a couple of clips. I'm going to play the first one where he is holding a press conference with Netanyahu and he makes a huge announcement.
And the Palestinians want to go back to Gaza is they have no alternative. It's right now a demolition site. This is just a demolition site. Virtually every building is down. They're living under fallen concrete that's very dangerous and very precarious. They instead can occupy all of a beautiful area with homes and safety, and they can live out their lives in peace and harmony instead of having to go back and do it again. The U.S. will take over the Gaza Strip, and we will do a job with it too. We'll own it and be responsible for dismantling all of the dangerous unexploded bombs and other weapons on the site, level the site and get rid of the destroyed buildings, level it out, create an economic development that will supply unlimited numbers of jobs and housing for the people of the area. Do a real job, do something different. Just can't go back. If you go back, it's going to end up the same way it has for 100 years. The only
Okay, so my jaw hit the floor when I heard that.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to play another clip because I think it adds a little more context. So this is him responding to reporters after he makes that announcement.
ownership position, and I see it bringing great stability to that part of the Middle East and maybe the entire Middle East. And everybody I've spoken to, this was not a decision made lightly. Everybody I've spoken to loves the idea of the United States owning that piece of land, developing and creating thousands of jobs with something that will be magnificent in a really magnificent area that nobody would know. Nobody can look because all they see is death and destruction and rubble and demolished buildings falling all over. It's just a terrible sight. I've studied it. I've studied this very closely over a lot of months, and I've seen it from every different angle. And it's a very, very dangerous place to be. And it's only going to get worse. And I think this is an idea that's gotten tremendous, and I'm talking about from the highest level of leadership, gotten tremendous praise. And if the United States can help to bring stability and peace in the Middle East, we'll do that.
You're talking to. Wow. So the U.S. is taking control of Gaza. I don't know how I feel about this, Tara.
He makes it sound like it's going to be a resort.
It probably will. This
Right?
is like his
Like,
business, right?
yeah, like it's like beachfront property on the Gaza Strip and it's gonna be beautiful and like, but like he was saying in that clip, like everyone he's talked to is totally on board. And that's not what I'm seeing. So again, I'm just looking at articles from everywhere, right? Including the MSM. And a lot of nations are speaking out against it. Like Saudi Arabia, Trump gave some indication that like Saudi Arabia is fine with it. Well, apparently not. Scotland, Australia, Brazil, like they're all calling it unacceptable and dangerous. And he wants to remove Palestinians from their home. And this is ethnic cleansing. And I'm curious how is this
Yeah.
supposed to happen? Where will these people go in the interim? You know?
No, I am genuinely shocked. I mean, just like with Greenland and the Panama Canal and Canada becoming a state, it's like none of this was really talked about on the campaign trail. I knew Israel wanted to take control of it. I'm just thinking, like, why are we putting ourselves in the middle of it? Why are we getting involved? Because there's going to be a lot of people pissed off about this. And here's what's weird, though. The fact that Netanyahu was next to him as he announced this and went along with it, something's up with that. That makes me think, like,
Yeah.
all this evidence that Doge is finding, could that have played into it? You know?
It's possible. It's so interesting because, Trump's plan is the America First agenda, right? But he's talking about all of these taking over Canada, Greenland, the
Yep.
Gaza Strip, right? So is it, is this part of the America First agenda with our national security? Or is
Okay,
this like an expansion thing?
here's where like I do see where he's coming from. Like, yes, it's terrible for the Palestinian people, but it would be good for America because, um, first of all, think about every Middle Eastern country where we've gone in and started war and destroyed them, and then we help them rebuild, we give them money, and what happens? The terrorists take over.
Right,
And
you get
like
it
then it
all.
becomes an
Yeah.
even bigger problem than before, which is exactly what would happen in Gaza with Hamas if they stay in there. So I see that aspect of it. I really do. But when he said that they will create an economic development, I am betting money. I am betting money they are going to build that canal that we were talking about way back when, that there have been
Yeah.
plans for years. I think that was the plan all along. My question is, did Trump know about that plan all along? Probably not, because this all took place under the Biden administration, October 7th and all of that. But then when Trump got in office and Doge is looking into everything, did they find damning evidence of this whole plan that maybe October 7th was an inside job? Maybe there was some shady shit going on in the background, and he's using that with Netanyahu to get Netanyahu to agree to this because this is huge. Like, this is huge. Um, think about Israel. We have given Israel $251 billion, well, inflation adjusted dollars since 1959. That's more than any other country in history, although Ukraine is not that far off now.
No, but remember when I was reading that list that I don't know
Hmm.
comes from the credible source, and
Yep.
just in the last 4 years, it's been 8.5 billion to Israel?
Yes. And the reason we're giving them all this money is so we have a footing in the Middle East. Well, now, if the United States has this land, we now have a footing. We don't need to keep giving handouts to Israel. And if this huge port and canal follows, which it will, mark my words, it'll change the game in the Middle East. And then the US has control of that canal, probably the Panama Canal, probably the
Hmm.
resources in Greenland. So all of this would bring tremendous abundance to the United States. I mean, that truly would be
Yeah.
America first. It's saying kind of like, screw you, Israel, screw you, Hamas and Gaza, but we're doing what's best for America. So I see both sides of it, but I think he's going to get so much pushback. I'm just nervous about this.
Yeah, because that is how the left is selling it. It's like this global, instead of Putin being the one that wants to take over Europe, it's like Trump is the one that wants to take over all these countries, and
Yeah,
expand America. But I totally see what you're saying. And realistically, like these are all areas that are somehow related to our border, and having control would only strengthen our border security
right. And
and
Gaza,
our
I mean,
ability to do trade.
if you look at the photos and videos of Gaza, no one's living there. It's
Right.
demolished. These people have moved away from there because everything is gone. So, and I get his point. Like, what are they going to do? Go back to the rubble? And there's like
Yeah.
bombs that might go off. So it's like, I don't know. I'm waiting for these Palestinian protesters to go wild and this to be used against Trump, So it's just like, I don't know. I
Yeah.
haven't had enough time to sit with it, I guess.
I'm sure that will happen. And they can just, add that to all of the immigration protests that are going on. And I did read, and I hope they fucking do this. I don't know if it was Secretary Bessent or someone else who was saying, like, there's all these, how when they do these protests and they take over the freeways and then like people can't
Hmm.
drive, and that's been going on in Los Angeles for the last few days. And I guess they're trying to get a federal law in place that you cannot interrupt traffic and protest on the freeways. And I hope they fucking do that like ASAP, because I
So,
support protesting in some respect, but not shit like that.
so in Los Angeles, they're protesting against sending illegals back, but they're not
Yes.
protesting about the wildfires and not
Right.
having any insurance money or help from FEMA. Okay.
Right. Hmm.
This is why everyone fucking hates you. No, I'm just kidding. Kidding, Los Angeles. Calm down. Okay, we have to end on something so ridiculous and funny. And you're gonna freaking love this, Tara. I hope you haven't heard it yet because I want you to be genuinely shocked. So the DNC, the Democrat National Convention, had what seemed to be an audition for the next DNC chair position. Listen to
I have not seen
Oh
this.
my God, you're gonna love it. Okay, listen to this.
Begin with the opening statements. Each candidate will have 30 seconds, and we'll start with Dr. Quintessa Hathaway.
Good evening, everyone. It is my desire to be the next DNC chair, and I just want to give you all a little bit of something that's been on my heart here over the last couple of days. You fight on, you fight on, you fight on, you fight on. When your government is doing you wrong, you fight on, oh, you fight on.
What the
Wow.
fuck was that?
When your government is doing you wrong, you fight on.
She just starts singing. I'm like, oh my God, this is why no one is taking the party seriously anymore. But the whole thing was like that. It was just Comedy Central. They were asked how many of them believed that racism and misogyny played a role in Kamala Harris's defeat. And of course, they all raised their hand, but then they turned around and appointed a white man, Ken Martin. So it's like
Of
this
course.
shit's
Of
so
course.
ridiculous. But just seeing all the people that were there, like trying to be serious, and this chick's like auditioning with a song, I'm like, oh my God, can't make it up.
I feel like I totally forgot the DNC even existed.
I don't know that they're going to exist much longer because clearly they're not getting the point. Like, people don't want this unhinged, woke, crazy shit anymore, but they're just going full force with it. So they probably won't be around much longer.
Now that song's going to be stuck in my head the rest of the day.
Oh, I know. Yeah. Sorry. Well, at least it'll give
Thanks.
you a little laugh. So, anyhow, everyone enjoy the rest of your day, and we'll see you back here on Friday. Thanks for tuning in.